Jerry and Afis. And one of the things, the guys actually elaborated on was the fact that, hey, all he actually said is very much an indictment on how our football is at this point. It's so terrible that, a coach will be coming out and talking about internet services, going to be talking about power supply, going to be talking about something as basic as, training facilities and all of that. He wants to actually run his team. These are basic demands. But I think the NFF, is actually also looking at two key indices, one of which is from my own position, right? I looked at it, and the two conditions I can say, at this point seems too excessive for the NFF. I mean, considering how they've actually been behaving when it comes to monetary demands or financial issues. 2 points. One of which is the issue of Eritrea actually flying with his family down to games that he actually be overseeing, and the other is actually the $130,000. I mean, I was having this conversation. I was telling the guys, hey, you know what? The truth is, for me, I believe Eritrea has really done well, improving our quality of play and all of that. But he was actually giving me a demand to actually qualify the Super Eagles for the World Cup, and also get to the Nations Cup final at least. But he didn't actually make any of these demands. So if you're actually asking for ×3, it simply means that it feels like you're actually doing this because you don't want to be on the job again. This is my own position. Am I against him actually getting a salary increment? No, I'm not against that. I think he's done so well to actually merit that. But the demand is actually bringing up, I don't think he's done enough to actually get that. That's exactly what I think about it. But so I really want to believe that this conversation will definitely go on, and then you'll find a way to actually bring it. But there's one thing about this sort of thing, right? If the coach gets his way, in this sort of situation, and then gets whatever it is, and find a way to actually hold the nation to ransom, it's not actually going to be a friendly house for the glass house and Eritrea. It's going to be some person who want to now start sabotaging his work and then eventually kick him out. But if he definitely eventually after all of this demand he succumb to pressure and then go back to maybe something he really didn't deserve, say you give him about $60,000 or he prove $70,000, which I still believe that he should earn more than that, and then it means that you finally find a way to actually subdue him. He's going to actually play by the dictates of the NFF, and in the long run definitely he's not going to also, I mean, there's really not going to be a lot of difference as regards, what's going to be outcome of his result. One of the key indices for me, or one of the key things that I actually saw, before just immediately after the AFCON or during the AFCON, was the fact that Eritrea actually really struggled with, putting his foot on the ground. Certain things actually shouldn't have actually happened. I mean, we've passed that phase now, but I think that's one of the reasons why he actually, was actually asking for, position. He's actually asking for authority to actually decide, who actually comes or who actually plays for his team, because that's exactly where coaches who are successful today, that's exactly where they actually start. You have to actually dictate and decide, how your team is run. But in the end, definitely, we just hope that Eritrea stays put, because at this point it's quite difficult to actually start again, get a new manager and then start hoping that he's going to actually get the chemistry right, because that's exactly what a lot of Nigerians do not want. That's exactly what we don't want to actually see. We struggle to actually get a manager who really understands the flair of the Super Eagles, take us back to the glorious days of the '94 and the '96, and now we are here having a conversation, a hanky-panky, dilly-dally, or whatever it is you choose to call it, and about his salary increment. For me, I think we should really sort this out and focus on the big one, which is obviously hoping that the Super Eagles get a favorable ruling, and then come this month, and then find a way to go to the World Cup and then do a very good showing. Hopefully, if we cannot get to the AFCON, let's get to the World Cup semi-final. If Morocco can do it, why can't we do it? Of course, let's move away from that and get straight to another very big one. I mean, these ones are actually the giants of Africa when it comes to the real giant of Africa when it comes to football. I talk about the Super Falcons because it is going to be a double-header right there, against one of the very strong teams in Africa, none other than Cameroon. Super Falcons of Nigeria are set to arrive in Yaoundé tomorrow for a double-header of a friendly match against the Indomitable Lioness of Cameroon. According to reports, head coach Justin Madugu, along with his assistant and home-based players Andele Ngbechi and Fatima Oloko, will depart from Abuja to meet the team in Cameroon. The foreign-based players will definitely join them in the capital. The first friendly is scheduled for Saturday, while the second match will take place the following Tuesday. Both teams are preparing for the AFCON 2026 Women's African Cup of Nations set to start next month in Morocco. The Super Falcons have been drawn in Group C alongside debutants Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Egypt. Meanwhile, Cameroon will compete in Group D with Ghana, Cape Verde, and Mali. I mean, if we talk about football in Africa, there is no there's no competition, there's no conversation around, who is actually arguably the best when it comes to female football. And it really worries me because I've looked at the Super Falcons the last couple of years. I think in the last 5 years, I've seen that there's been steady decline of what what we're used to in terms of quality of play. Will you want to actually say it's because of other teams are actually improving? Maybe you want to say that, but then if other teams are actually improving, we also expect Super Falcons to be improving. The quality of players we had, in the early 90s to the mid 2000s are actually way different from what we have today. And it says a lot about how much football is actually growing across the world and how other teams are trying to actually catch up with the pace of the Super Falcons. But as it stands now, I think this is a very good one because I recall that after the WAFCON, the ladies were actually complaining about, lack of friendly games. Even before the WAFCON that they actually won, it was also an issue for them to actually get competitive friendly games. And now it's a good one. But because I wasn't really expecting, a lot of persons aren't even expecting it. There are talks about, the NFF and some persons within the glass house trying to sabotage the Super Falcons because some of them came out to say, hey, we haven't actually received our $100,000 that the president actually gave us, and it became a thing. So some talks and some reports, people talking about how some people within the ranks of the football running body within the country, or some persons who are key stakeholders saying they actually want to actually sabotage the girls and ensure that they don't get this sort of largesse again and all of that. But it's so good that this friendly has actually shown that that's actually untrue, because if this friendly is actually coming, it means that the NFF and people within the glass house actually want the girls to succeed. And for me, it's actually a very big one. This is a very big test, double header against a very strong West African opponent like the Cameroon. I think it's really going to help shape the girls, and I just want to hope that this friendly actually these guys actually come out of this friendly without any sort of injury, because in the end, we do not want the Super Falcons, who are actually champions now, going to another championship and then struggle to actually live up because they are losing key players due to injury. But it's actually a good one. Kudos to whoever it is that actually made this happen. I'm looking at the National Sports Commission and the NFF. People who are actually, in charge to actually run our football. It's actually a very good one. And this is one of those big games that you also want to expect, around Africa. This is a sort of quality. If we cannot actually get top countries in Europe to actually shape the girls for the major tournament like this, I think Cameroon is a very worthy opponent in this regard. Away from the Super Falcons, let's go straight to another very, very, I'll say it's actually a very disturbing story, because this one concerns Victor Osimhen. Osimhen is a player who we saw his trajectory, his development. At some point, felt like this guy's actually not going to live up to the billing as regards him being arguably the best thing we've seen in under 17 in terms of being the top marksman. But now we're actually seeing him, and this story is actually quite touching, as the Turkish giant Galatasaray are currently struggling to fulfill their financial obligations regarding the salary of Nigerian international Victor Osimhen, who currently joined the club on a permanent basis after spending last season on loan from Napoli. Galatasaray had agreed to the yearly €21 million for the 27-year-old, but reports from Harity indicates that club has been unable to keep up with the payment since the beginning of the year. Osimhen, who missed the weekend's 2-0 defeat against Konyaspor due to precautionary knee issue, has not received a salary for 2 consecutive months, January and this month, February. The club has yet to actually address the viral report, which did not clarify whether the payment delays are exclusive to Victor Osimhen or if they also have other players on the roster. Looking ahead, of course, Galatasaray will face Juventus later today, which is Tuesday, in the second leg of the UEFA Champions League round of 32 playoff, holding the 5-2 advantage from the first leg played in Istanbul, precisely the Ram Park, where Galatasaray are actually the landlord of that particular stadium. But the big question here, right? I was talking about Victor Osimhen, and I look at how this young man has actually, move and develop himself as a player. I remember, how he actually smashed 10 goals right there at the Under-17 World Cup and then move on. We're actually expecting great things from him. But then he moved to Germany. It was actually quite slow for him, injury, and then he moved to France. He picked up again. He moved to Italy. He became, the player we actually expect him to be. And then there was so many controversies after winning the Scudetto after over 30 years, with Napoli. And now, when he actually moved to had issues with the hierarchy of the club, racially abused him even on their platform on social media, and then he decided to actually move to Turkey. Now, when Osimhen was moving to Turkey, there were lots of conversation. Hey, you are bigger than this. You're going to be a big fish in the pond. Your likes are actually playing elite football in top 5 leagues in Europe. You have no business going to Turkey. I was one of the persons who said, hey, it's better for Victor Osimhen to take a pay cut, and then just one season is definitely going to ask for bigger wage. But then, I mean, the pressure, the tension around him, everything. I mean, you cannot actually take the best decision more than the person who is actually feeling at the point. So I quite understand how it felt. For him, it's just about me. I just want to leave Turkey at that point, and I also want to pay, good. I want a place that I will be respected. And then he moved to Turkey. It was huge, celebration. The ovation was loud. I mean, I don't think the Turkish league has had a player in his prime, top 8 Ballon d'Or player, moved into Turkish league, before Victor Osimhen. So it was so big for them. But there's something so quite interesting that when I actually saw this report, I was actually thinking, okay, so something actually really did happen, and now that thing is actually coming back to bite, Victor Osimhen and the club. Because when they're actually looking at bringing Victor Osimhen, when Napoli was actually giving their demands for Victor Osimhen, something came up. The club, was actually saying, hey, we really do not have the money, even if it's going to take us, taxing the entire fans €2 to actually, get this man. We're definitely going to do it. 35,000 of capacity. So let's say €2. We're looking at plus or minus, that's huge. $70,000, dollars, $75,000. No, $70,000. I beg your pardon. And then we were able to actually get Victor Osimhen. All of this math they actually did. Now it's one thing to actually get the player, but then how do you actually continue to service the player? This is a very big question, because people look at cars and say, hey, I like this car, Yes, you can actually do everything you can. You can even sell your land, sell your house to actually get the car, but servicing the car, fueling the car is the big question. And now that's exactly where they are stuck. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I just hope, in the end, that Victor Osimhen doesn't get caught up in the situation where he's going to be angry, he's going to be frustrated, as it was, about 2 seasons ago. Because I just want him to actually move on with his life and then continue to progress in his career. He's still quite 27. He can still return to Europe. I don't know what the negotiations will be if they will eventually if they cannot pay, they will decide to eventually loan him. But one thing is certain. But if you've been watching Osimhen in the last couple of years, you know that Osimhen is as happy as he was in his first season in Italy. So, I mean, there's nothing as huge and big for than a player of his caliber or any other player playing top football in any part of the world being happy with his club side, no matter how much he's earning. And that's exactly where they need to actually come around and find a way to actually solve this. It's quite disturbing for me, and it's so unfortunate that Victor Osimhen is again being caught in a sort of drama that does not really, as far as I'm concerned, does not really fit his personality. But then let's move away from that and talk about what really happened right there in the English Premier League. Last night, Benjamin Sesko came off the bench to deliver the only goal as Manchester United beat Everton 1-0 at the Hill Dixon Stadium, extending United's unbeaten run to 10 matches and moving Michael Carrick's side back into top 4. The 22-year-old Slovenian finished a sweet counter-attack in the 71st minute, capping move involving Cunha and Brian Buemo. Sesko's goal marked the 3rd substitute strike of the season. No player has scored more off the bench in the Premier League. Both teams struggled to create clear-cut chances, but of course it was actually a very difficult one. But Everton pushed after going behind. A determined performance from Manchester United goalkeeper Senne Lammers, who made 4 crucial saves, secured United's first away league clean sheet since March 2025. I mean, I looked at it and I started asking myself, since March 2025, this is almost a year now, United hasn't won an away league game. It's quite disturbing. Michael Carrick is come and is actually turning everything around. I mean, if we look at the quality of play United has actually been dishing out since Michael Carrick actually came on board, you understand that there's something about the team, how they are willing to actually die for the badge, and how they are willing to actually go all the way, protect a lead, 1-0 lead. I mean, back in the Ruben Amorim era or other coaches before Michael Carrick, you understand that when United is actually in this position, get a goal, it's most likely that the opponents will definitely find a way to come around. But Carrick has actually done something, even with the absence of Dogu, who has been impressive for Manchester United. It felt like the team hasn't really missed him, because there's a way that the manager has actually find a way to actually tweak the team and put them in a position where they definitely be like a winner. But again, there's something about this goalkeeper. Yes, Senne Lammers, before he actually came on board, a lot of talks about him, lack of league experience. United actually was gunning for Martinez, the Argentine, but then eventually they landed this young man. People are actually talking about how it's actually going to cost United. It's actually quite good. He's got the reflex of David here, but can he actually hold his own? United doesn't really have the best set of defense that will really protect him. And at this point, if you must actually be an elite club side, you need to have a goalkeeper that can actually make this sort of crucial shape. Yesterday, one of the big debates, around the Premier League was about how goalkeepers can actually eventually help you win the Premier League. And a lot of talks about David Raya and Gigi Donnarumma. These two guys have been impressive for the club side and how they managed to actually help their team to actually gain points. A couple of months ago also there were conversations about how John Terry was talking about how in the peak of Chelsea, Jose Mourinho, how Peter Cech actually helped them gain about 12 to 15 points in Premier League run when they actually won the league. So it tells you a lot about how team can actually win, trophies or remain consistent with elite goalkeeper. The truth is, you can win a tournament without top players, but you cannot win a tournament without an elite goalkeeper. It's not even possible because in the end, even if you don't have elite player in your team, if you have a very good chemistry, if you have a very good structure, you can go all the way to actually win a team. But you need that goalkeeper, instinct. You need that top goalkeeper to actually help you when the moment is the ovation is loudest. You recall in 2022 World Cup, Rende Colomboane's last strike would have actually backed France in the World Cup. But then what really happened? Martinez found a way to actually save Argentina. Go back to the 2021 World Cup America again. You also see how Martinez was instrumental for Argentina winning that particular tournament. No disrespect to any player who was part of the team, but you cannot take it away from goalkeeper. Now we look at Sulaiman Lames. If he continues in this shape, it's definitely going to help United to actually stay on course for the top 4 race in the end of the season. No wonder he did actually get, the player of the match in that particular game. He was actually quite instrumental. 4 outstanding saves to actually keep United in the game, and then ensure that the 3 points remains United's. United actually take 3 points away from the Everton Stadium, and it's actually a very big one. But then congratulations to Michael Carrick. He's done so well. 10 games since he arrived, and United he's been so fantastic. A lot of people were actually expecting him to actually go 5 games straight, but then he actually drew the last game, and then he started again. Who knows if he can actually do it this time around? We'll get to get the view of that young man who's been begging to get his head trimmed in the end. But then of course let's go to another football story. But before we go straight into that, which is going to be something that is going to be another very not too good conversation, but again, some person will look at it and say it's actually a very big one because in the end, we look at it and say no racism, no football. I want to look at Rokodare also suffered. We'll look at this, and of course that of Benfica winger Gianluca Prestiani, who actually assaulted Vinicius Jr. But don't go nowhere. When we come back, let's go to a quick break. The show continues.
In a world where power shifts with every headlines, news breaks and events happens, we bring you unbiased and explicit information on politics, economy and state of the nation. We break down the chaos. Facts, not fluff. Truth, not spin. We discuss not just politics, but a glimpse into the future. Voice of the People Television. Now you have more than a voice. In a world where power shifts with every headlines, news breaks and events happens, we bring you on by...
Welcome to the locker room, the home of football talk that matters. I am Jerry Unpaid. Join us every weekday, Monday to Friday at 5 p.m. Nigerian time, as we share the hot takes and hot debates in the exciting world of football. And joining me are the usual suspects, Ikechukwu and Mayowa, as we break down all the hot takes and everything that's happening in the football. Don't just watch football, live it with us. Catch us on the locker room and Voice of the People Television at 5 p.m. Nigerian time. And like I always say, if not going to the talk, please the sport.
And it's Hakim Ziyech, who puts the Atlas.
From the views on the streets,
we go to bed empty hunger,
to the blaring horns of a hustling city. The loudest voices of the common man got a medium to be heard.
This particular administration, they were coming unprepared.
It's not a bad thing to renovate the president's lawn.
Through top-notch programming, unbiased reportage of news, sports, business, entertainment, and cultural documentaries, Voice of the People 90.3 FM became a symbol for 21st century media. And now, a new baby is born. Voice of the People Television, VOP TV, youthful, full of vigor and penchant for excellence in the continent's media space, exposing the wrongs, applauding the rights, dissecting the news without fear or favor, through factual and accurate stories and contents.
Corruption kills three things that makes a society.
Representing the interests of the people and giving them a voice. Voice of the People TV is here to stay towards building a fair society. VOP TV, Voice of the People Television, truly a voice for the people.
Africa is on the move, a continent of rising voices, untold stories, and powerful transformations. From the streets of Lagos to the heart of Nairobi, from the mines of Congo to the tech labs of Cape Town, the African story is being written every day. Bold, dynamic, unstoppable. This is African News on Voice of the People Television. We don't just bring you the news. We analyze and bring you Africa's heartbeat, the politics that shapes our nations, the economies that drives our future, the cultures that defines who we are, the voice that must be heard. Africa News, Africa's voice, Africa's future. Where Africa speaks, the world listens.
Welcome back to Sport Republic. Before I went on that break, I told you that definitely if I come back, I'll be taking you through what's going down right there in Europe. And this time around is concerned one man. And you know, last week the world was all around, you know, throwing condolence and supporting Vinicius Jr. Talking about how he was actually racially abused, in lots of conversation about this thing should not actually be happening. But before I go into the Vinicius story, which UEFA has officially provincially ruled, I was talking about first about our own Nigerian international. That one really did hurt me. And Tolu Arokodare has no business to actually be caught in this web. I mean, how can you be racially abused by your own support base because you lost a penalty? It reminds me of what happened to likes of Bukayo Saka, Rashford, and this very young set of players playing for the Three Lions after the Euro 2022, after the Euro 2020, Euro 2022, I beg your pardon, Nations Cup. That actually the Three Lions actually lost to the Azzurri. Talking about the Italian national team, it's actually not a position you want to actually find yourself. It's actually quite sad that could actually happen. But then these guys actually were racially abused, and I mean I don't know why these sort of things happen. But then we'll go into that in full. But let's start from where it really matters most. As UEFA actually with the huge stake, the hammer on the Benfica winger Galicia Cristiani for the match after an ethics inspector recommended disciplinary action over alleged racist comment directed at Vinicius Jr. forward, and of course the Real Madrid forward who actually claimed that he was actually racially abused, and it was actually corroborated by his teammate in person of Kylian Mbappe. It's quite sad, but then these are the sort of things we look about. We've been talking about ever since. We look at these things, and it's quite sad that you look at elite players being abused, and then you look at players who are actually not supposed to be caught in this sort of work. And of course, this actually is one of those very sad things. And this statement you see on your screen is a statement from Nigerian International. I mean, it's so sad that we actually see this in 2026, and this is a statement of Tolu Arokodare. Arokodare is actually so sad he came out to actually make this huge statement, and he said it's still unbelievable to me that I it's still unbelievable to me that we are playing in a time where, okay, it's still very much unbelievable to me, I beg your pardon, we are playing in a time where, people have so much freedom to actually communicate such racism without any consequences. This individual should have no place in our game, and collectively, we have to take action to punish everyone who taints the sport like this, no matter who they are. It's really sad that, Arokodare actually went through this, and then, Vinicius also, UEFA eventually ruled interimly or provisionally for him that, the Benfica, winger would definitely not be part of today's game, and most likely, if he's found guilty, he's definitely going to be facing, up to 10 months. But an interim measure, that was taken by UEFA to investigate the indiscriminatory behavior during the Champions League knockout playoffs first leg. The inspector's initial findings reportedly indicate a prima facie evidence that Cristiano breached UEFA's anti-discrimination rules, prompting recommendation for a one-game suspension pending a full disciplinary hearing. And of course, Benfica have said that they will appeal the temporary ban, although they acknowledge the tight timeline means an appeal is unlikely to affect Cristiano's availability for second leg. The club are nevertheless considering taking the player to Real Madrid. If the appeals succeed, he would be eligible to play. Of course, UEFA described the provisional suspension as without prejudice, underlining that Cristiano will still receive a full and fair hearing if found guilty of discriminatory behavior. The regulations carry a maximum of at least 10 match ban. Of course, Vinicius Jr. initially in that particular game halted the match, which led referee Francesco Letesa to actually activate the anti-racial protocol, and Cristiano has denied the allegation over and again, and Benfica has shared footage of the conversation, arguing that the distance between players makes the alleged comment unclear. UEFA's investigation will determine the facts before any final disciplinary decision is taken. But the truth is, for me, right, UEFA has come out to actually, I think it's fair at this point, because if Cristiano actually, go to the Bernabeu, with this, tension at this point, I think it's also going to be attacked or abused. I don't think it's actually going to be healthy for the sport. So it's better for him to actually sit this out. But then, right, for me, I don't think it should be banned. I think, it should actually, be asked to actually, wait it out until, after this sort of things happen. This is my take. I think UEFA actually took this position to actually ensure that, there's a clean air going down right there in the Bernabeu. Nobody's going to be attacked. It's going to be actually a free fall for all, who let the best man win. And of course, you also know that the coach of, Benfica, Osimhen'S, will also not be on the bench because he was actually booked in that particular game. But the big conversation here is that, how do you even determine a prima facie, case in this particular point? Because, a player who is also a teammate of Vinicius Jr. did corroborate the story, and then UEFA, decide to actually, go ahead with it and decide to say, you know what, I think there's an evidence enough for you to actually be, banned, or for you to actually, come for, to actually prove a self-claim. But, for those who are actually wondering what prima facie is, prima facie is definitely an Italian word. It's a word that simply loosely translates as, a first point of call, right? If something is deemed to have happened, and then you're trying to set a case, for you are trying to actually set the case that something actually did happen, then of course you have an evidence that shows that, okay, maybe or maybe not. Let me give it a very simple scenario. Say for example, David is actually known to actually kill little chickens, and then or people say David killed little chicken. Right, and because there's actually no clear evidence that David kills little chicken, and anytime David's not around, little chickens dies. But when David is around, somehow little chickens, don't die. But now people are actually saying, "Oh, David, you are the one who actually did this." Now I'm trying to explain prima facie. David is usually known to do this. People actually alleging that David did it. There's no actually clear case, but David is seen when David actually was brought, before everyone. On his way to that particular meeting where people would actually, tend to say, okay, you did it or you didn't do it. Wind blew, towards David, and, some, little feathers of the chicken was on David's shirt. That's prima facie. That's a case of, okay, you didn't do it, but how did this get to your shirt, right? These are, what this sort of thing means, right? Another classic example is, someone's, you kept something here, and then a man who is said to have actually taken that thing, right? He didn't actually take it, but because he got in contact with someone who did take it, and this, for example, the thing in question here is something that's edible, and the smell of that thing, because he shook hands with the person who did eat it, is right there, on his hand. And then the person who shook him said, I perceive this thing in your hand. It seems you actually have a feel of it, and the person didn't. So these are what prima facie basically means. So that's exactly what it means to say something is prima facie. At first instance, it looks like you did it. So now let's go for investigation. Let's go to actually check if you really did it based on other evidences that will definitely come up, and they will be able to decide. For me, I will look at it and I'll say, it's quite a very spicy one, because UEFA has shown themselves that they are not Amaka. They are not ready to actually disappoint anyone. I just want them to actually come out, with the best set of results or ruling that is going to actually, be favorable to everyone, because this is quite really sad. Racism should not be part of our sport. We shouldn't even be talking about it in 2026. But until racism, I said it before and I'll say it again, until racism is, eradicated from the world outside football, it's going to find its way to come back, because people who, these people who actually racially abuse these guys are actually people, I'm talking about the case of Arokodare now, are actually people who actually work in other, spheres of life. So they come to stadium to actually enjoy themselves. So it's part of them. They definitely always bring it, onto the pitch. It's quite sad. But away from football, now let's go straight to, the pugilist game, talking about boxing, where Floyd Mayweather Jr. and Manny Pacquiao will renew their long-running rivalry in sensational rematch at the Sphere in Las Vegas on Saturday, September 19, 2026. Mayweather is now 48, confirmed that he will come out of retirement and face Pacquiao, who is 47, I beg your pardon, more than a decade after the very first fight in 2015. That original bout ended in a unanimous decision, with Mayweather being the winner and became one of the richest events in boxing history, setting a record for gate receipt and pay-per-views. And for Pacquiao returned to the ring in July 2025 in a majority draw with Mario Barros, while campaigning for the WBC welterweight title. The Mayweather has actually kept active with a series of exhibition bouts against fighters including Logan Paul and Conor McGregor, and recently signaled plans to return following an exhibition with Mike Tyson. Both fighters reflected on the significance of a second meeting. Mayweather said he expects the same outcome, and Manny Pacquiao described the rematch as an opportunity to give the fans, of course, particularly the Filipinos, the chapter of their rivalry and the honor to, make them feel that yes, definitely their man can actually, become champion and defeat his biggest and worst, nightmare. And the fights will be shown globally. And although both men are willing, to actually go head on, but they're way past their prime, but the competitiveness and of course their brand cannot be washed off. These guys are the biggest commercial boxers ever in history of the game. I mean, the last fight, in 2015, that fight here raked huge tons of money. Plus or minus, it was around $600 million US. So it tells you a lot about how these guys, can actually turn the game and spin the game of boxing. For me, if you look at this fight, if you've been following the history of these two boxers, you may want to actually say Mayweather would definitely want to actually, would most likely want to, take this one again. But I don't think so. For me, from where I stand now, I think Pacquiao has a very good shot. Pacquiao is a year younger. Yes, 1 year cannot really make a lot of difference, when it comes to these sort of things in sport generally. But then one thing I can also say is Pacquiao right now is sharper, because he's actually been, fighting competitive fights, while Mayweather has just been doing, what's his best described as sparring. And I don't think he's really that sharp to actually, go ahead. But of course, September is still very much a long time. He might actually want to actually go, head on with someone again, in a very good fight before he fights Pacquiao. But I think this might just be the first time Pacquiao will eventually, take on Mayweather and then defeat him. And it's going to be very beautiful for the game. But if they're going to actually have, if they are fighting this fight in September, and for some reasons, if Pacquiao wins this fight, trust me, there's going to be a rematch, because Mayweather will definitely want to come back. He's won too many, and he's definitely not want to go, to lose, to Pacquiao. 2 times. So it's going to be quite interesting. Maybe just maybe, if that happens and Pacquiao wins, we're definitely going to look at a rematch before this, December 26th, or again, the very first quarter of January 2027. But it's a very, very good one, particularly for, the fact that, the money that this particular bout is coming with is going to be huge for the both of them, and of course for their fans. The Philippines, definitely catch a glimpse of, one of their own, a parliamentarian again, in the center of the world, everyone watching him and how he's going to actually, do it this time around against his biggest nightmare in the world of boxing. Away from boxing, let's go straight to golf. Yes, Rory McIlroy held his progress in the game after closing a 4-round 4 under 67 to finish 1 shot behind Jacob Bridgman at Genesis Invitational. Starting the final round, 6 shots off the lead, McIlroy produced 4 back 9 birdies to mount a late charge, but ultimately ran out of holes as Bridgman held on for his maiden PGA Tour title at Riviera Community Club. McIlroy praised the cleanness of his ball striking and reduction in big numbers, noting he recorded just 3 bogeys all week. He steps in the right direction. That's exactly what McIlroy actually called it. My game feels good shape. I'm in a better shape. I've learned from the West Coast swing and now look forward to working on a few things before Bay Hill and the player. But McIlroy admitted his comeback started too late, saying he regretted missed opportunities over previous 27 holes, but looked confident from trusting his reads on the back nine. With a week to fine-tune ahead of the Florida swing, he believes the strong finish provides momentum despite falling short of the title. And of course, from that, will definitely go straight to that. Yes, that one man will always be in the news, and that man is arguably the greatest dart player. Is still very much at 18, but he's doing so much for himself. I mean, I'll call him the GOAT of that, and none other than Luke Littler, who actually says his big win at the Superbet Poland Darts Open has given him the confidence he needs to actually return his Premier League doubt, to actually turn his Premier League doubt that campaign around. The number one had a thought few nights, a narrow victory at Antwerp, followed by a heavy loss to Johnny Clayton in Glasgow, but he's back to his best in Krakow. Littler actually blazed his way through the weekend, averaging 113.84 in an early win, finishing with nearly 106 in the semis, and shrugged off Jan van Veen's 9 data in the final to actually lift the title. There's still loads of time to actually get into the top 4. He said this weekend has given him the massive confidence going into Belfast. I need to start picking this result and play better on Thursday, he said. Littler now heads to the SSE Arena where he'll meet Clayton in the quarterfinals on Premier League night 4, with plenty of that left in the season. I mean, after bagging $20 million, a lot of persons expected this young man who is barely still very much a teenager to actually lose his head. But that $20 million endorsement from Target that didn't actually deter him. He just still wants to keep winning. He's hungry for success. He continues to push himself, and that's exactly the hallmarks of champion. I look at Cristiano Ronaldo scoring 500 goals after he turned 30, and I just start wondering, asking myself, can we actually ever see players in this particular era do same? I mean, at 27, 28, most of these players almost feels like, they are actually gone. But Cristiano Ronaldo, the Lionel Messi of their generation, even the Lewandowski, the Benzema, these guys feels like they started their career at 27. I don't know what's wrong with, people of those days, that generation and this generation. I don't know, why it feels like those ones are more hungry. But that's the level of hunger this young man here you see on your screen, Luke Littler is actually bringing on, this particular championship. I mean, in the end, I won't be surprised if he actually, become the champion of the Premier League that this particular season. He's really, really done so well for himself. And, at 18, maybe he's going to continue to rule the world of that until we see a worthy competition, someone who is also willing to push himself as much as this young man is actually pushing himself. And of course, with that, we'll definitely move to, Formula One, where, the McLaren team principal, Andrea Stella, says Ferrari and Mercedes look a step ahead following 2026 pre-season test in Bahrain, though he believes McLaren remains close behind. Charles Leclerc topped the time sheet on the last day after strong race simulation, prompting Stella to caution that lap times can be influenced by time of the day and track condition. He said race simulations are often best indicator of true performance, but added that Bahrain result may not carry all circuits. Stella singled out Red Bull's deployment efficiency, their ability to harvest and use electric energy as a clear advantage at some tracks. He warned that Australia's Albert Park, which demands different harvesting and deployment characteristics than Bahrain, could reshuffle the packing order. McLaren, which uses Mercedes power units, has been working closely with Mercedes engine team, but Stella said there is more to learn on the engine control and power unit exploitation to improve race performances. He described his team's outlook as cautiously optimistic ahead of the season's opener in Australia on March 6 to 8. I mean, that will definitely be, sometimes next week. And of course, with that, we'll definitely be wrapping up today's edition of Sport Republic Show. It's been a very great time here, I must say, and lots of conversation. Kizzy K will definitely be here tomorrow to take us round the world of that, and of course also make us understand, the results, take us, through the drama that will definitely be unfolding in today's UEFA Champions League. Lots of conversation. We'll definitely be going to be seeing that, and lots of talk around, the Presiani. A lot of eyes will be on Presiani. People will talk about Presiani a lot, in the bid of the Real Madrid and Benfica again. Kizzy will definitely be here to bring it on. And of course, do not also forget to be a part of Locker Room this evening, as the guys will definitely breaking down all football stories. I'll talk about Jerry and Afis right there, and they will definitely be doing 5 p.m. in time. Stay tuned. And of course, up next is definitely midday news, as David will take us around the world to tell us exactly what will be happening. My name is Ikechukwu Aguago. Have a sporty day ahead.